Hey there, welcome back to the Parkinson's Disease Education Podcast. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about Ambroxol. We're going to talk a little bit about what that is and how it's making an impact in the Parkinson's world, or at least we hope it might be. There's current research going on to see if this particular substance may actually help to reduce alpha-synuclein, which is an abnormal protein that accumulates in persons with Parkinson's disease. On the other side of the intro, we'll talk about that a lot more, and I hope you'll stick around until the end. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and like this video if you appreciate the content. Every little bit helps. I'll see you on the other side of the intro. Welcome to the Parkinson's Disease Education Show, where we demystify the disease and empower you as the person with Parkinson's disease to reach your true potential. The content contained on this show is for informational purposes only and is not meant to be a replacement for information or advice that you receive from your in-person medical or therapy professionals. If you haven't already, I hope you'll consider subscribing, and for an even more personalized experience, please ask us about our memberships. Now, without further ado, let's start the show. First of all, we need to talk about what Ambroxol is. So Ambroxol is actually just a cough medicine or a mucolytic. It's often found mainly in European countries. It's not something that is in the United States at this point, but it's an over-the-counter medication. So it's not a fancy drug that is going through a bunch of trials for basically approval or whatnot for treatment of Parkinson's disease. It's an existing medication that they happen to have just found that there is a potential benefit for persons with Parkinson's, and that's what the research is surrounding at this point. So specifically how Ambroxol relates to the issue with alpha-synuclein is that typically in Parkinson's disease there are issues with what's called the endolysosomal pathway. There are specific gene mutations associated with Parkinson's disease that essentially prevent the cells from being able to take damaged particles or parts of the cell and break them down and recycle them. That's called the endolysosomal pathway. So lysosomes are the organelle within cells that helps to digest or break down unwanted things or damaged parts and so forth. And so that's a problem with Parkinson's, and alpha-synuclein is one of the things that can accumulate in the cells, particularly the nerve cells, brain cells rather, that produce dopamine. And when they don't, when the endolysosomal pathway is impaired due to some of these genetic mutations that can happen, then alpha-synuclein builds up instead of getting broken down and recycled into parts that the cell can then use. Well, it's thought that Ambroxol actually can help through an enzyme called GCase. The full name of GCase, in case you're interested, is beta-glucocerebrosidase, but GCase is the short name for that enzyme. So that enzyme is a lysosomal enzyme, meaning it could help the function of those lysosomes actually to break up damaged parts of the cell or things that are unwanted within the cell. Essentially, if those cells are not rid of alpha-synuclein, that's part of the reason why those cells actually die in the brain. The dopamine-producing cells need to be spared at all cost. There is some hope that this may be a potential way to prevent basically increasing or continued cell death in those that have Parkinson's disease. So again, by boosting GCase, it's thought that it could help with the endolysosomal pathway within those dopamine-producing cells and help to reduce alpha-synuclein accumulation, which can be toxic to the cell. So I want to tell you a little bit about some studies that have happened prior to this. There's currently a phase 3 trial going on in the United Kingdom right now, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But I wanted to share with you some results from previous research and kind of what's led to the research that's happening with the trial that just started in April of this year. When I say this year, you may be watching this at a later time, but I'm referring to April 2025 as of this recording. So the first trial we need to talk about is called the ASPro-PD trial. That was a phase 2A trial where Ambroxol was administered to 17 individuals with Parkinson's disease, and it was high-dose Ambroxol doses for 6 months. In that trial, they found that Ambroxol reached the cerebrospinal fluid of these individuals, increased their GCase activity, and showed signal of motor improvement. The one thing about this trial is it was not definitive in terms of the results, and it was more of a way to generate hypotheses that then led to future research. That's what brings us to the next trial, which is a Parkinson's disease dementia randomized trial. This was published in JAMA Neurology in 2025. In this particular study, 55 individuals with Parkinson's disease dementia were randomized for 52 weeks to Ambroxol versus placebo. So one group received Ambroxol and one did not, or they received some kind of a sham drug. Basically, the long and the short of that study was that it was safe and well tolerated in terms of those that took the drug. There was higher GCase levels, but there was no confirmed difference in primary cognitive outcome. In other words, their dementia symptoms and cognition did not improve between the two groups. So one of the things they looked at was exploratory signals. So one of them was GFAP, which is a blood marker linked to neurodegeneration. So there was a stabilization of GFAP, meaning potentially there was little degeneration or further degeneration that happened neurologically speaking, as shown in this study. The other thing they showed was a possible cognitive benefit in GBA1 high-risk subgroup. I forgot to mention earlier, GBA1 is a particular gene linked to the lysosomal function of the neurons in Parkinson's disease. So GBA1 is the gene that actually activates the lysosomal pathway, which is impaired in Parkinson's disease. So in other words, mutations of GBA1 result in problems with that function. So GCase is produced by GBA1, hence Ambroxol potentially activating GBA1 and helping with that process. Anyway, they found that GBA1 high-risk subgroup may have a cognitive benefit from Ambroxol, but there was no confirmation on that, and they would need longer, larger trials to make that determination. Essentially, at this point in the research, they basically just showed that there's promise in this area, but we don't have any proof that it's actually making a difference yet. Finally, we're going to talk about the phase 3 trial that's going on right now. That's called the ASPro-PD study. So ASPro-PD stands for Ambroxol to Slow Progression in Parkinson's. And with that study, it's being sponsored or led by the University College of London. And again, it's a phase 3 randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial. There's 330 people with Parkinson's taking part in this trial, and they have been shown to have, or half of them have been shown to have a GBA1 variant of that gene, and they were pre-screened to have that change. So this is an ongoing trial, as I mentioned, but this is going to be looking at 2 years following these individuals, taking Ambroxol versus placebo, followed by 6 months open label Ambroxol for everybody that's participating in the trial. They're really primarily focused on the motor aspect of Parkinson's in this study. So it's going to be based on scores from the MDS UPDRS Part 3, which is the motor aspect of the modified Universal Parkinson's Disease Rating Scale, or the MDS UPDRS. Sorry, that was a lot of word salad, but the long and the short of it is this is an ongoing study, just opened April of 2025, as I mentioned earlier, and the funding of this study is coming from Cure Parkinson's UK, the Van Andel Institute, and the John Black Charitable Foundation. So essentially that's a little bit of why they're researching this, why the mechanism may actually benefit persons with Parkinson's disease, and why there's potential reason to continue research. That's the one thing that's a little bit of a hang-up for me personally, is that the previous studies didn't seem to really show a significant difference statistically, or really even in symptom modification of these individuals with Parkinson's, particularly the dementia trial. So it's a little perplexing to me how this got to phase 3 when there really wasn't strong evidence that this was going to stop progression of Parkinson's or reverse symptoms or so forth. I completely get theoretically why they want to look into something that can basically eliminate alpha-synuclein aggregation, because that's what's responsible for things like Lewy body dementia or Parkinson's disease with Lewy bodies. It's also responsible for a lot of other symptoms, like, for example, peripheral neuropathy in those with Parkinson's. So, I mean, phase 3 trial, I mean, that's really, that's one of the last stages of clinical trials. So if those phase 3 trial results aren't very promising, I don't see this going much further as a regular treatment for those taking Parkinson's disease. But it is over the counter, so it's not necessarily something that's hard to obtain. So if you have Parkinson's disease and you wanted to try this, you would probably need to consult with your physician if you're watching this from Europe. As I said, in the United States, this is not a drug that is FDA approved. So it's not something that I don't think we can necessarily find here in the US or Canada, but definitely in England, Scotland, Ireland, France, other places, it's definitely something that could be available to you. One thing I want to caution you on, though, is Ambroxol is not approved as a treatment specifically for Parkinson's disease. So you definitely don't want to start taking it without medical supervision, because the dosages that are being used in these trials, for example, are much higher than over-the-counter doses. So it may not be effective if you're just taking regular cough medication in the over-the-counter form, and you don't want to necessarily start taking more just because you think it might be helpful. We don't really know the levels that might benefit persons with Parkinson's at this point. So that's still being researched, and that's the reason for the phase 3 trial going on right now. If motor symptoms improve as a result of it, I'd be very interested in hearing that. But we're a couple of years out from hearing those results. I can assure you, as soon as results come out, I'll be one of the first people to share it with you as soon as I'm aware of it. But you let me know if you've tried Ambroxol or been prescribed Ambroxol with Parkinson's disease management, and if there's been any results whatsoever. I don't know that these are results that you would tangibly notice, to be honest with you. I suppose in theory, if it can truly eliminate alpha-synuclein aggregation or greatly slow it down, you might just at the very least not notice a quick progression of Parkinson's. That actually that's not insignificant. For what it's worth, if you could slow down progression of Parkinson's early by preventing this increase in alpha-synuclein, then that potentially would be worth it. At any rate, let me know what you think about all of this. And if you're aware of anything stateside or in Canada that is even kind of remotely similar to this, I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts on that. If I hear anything, I'll share it with you. Thanks for watching. If you're watching all the way through to this point, that means you really appreciate the content that we're putting out and that you are interested in what we're talking about. So thank you again, and if you haven't subscribed already, please do. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe. It only helps the channel to grow and to be shown to more people just like you. Thanks again for being here. I'll see you in the next episode. Until then, be empowered.